The Wellness Hour. An in-depth discussion with today's top physicians and medical leaders. And now, your host, Randy Alvarez.
You're watching a special edition of The Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. My first guest is Dr. Steven Gundry. Dr. Gundry is a board-certified cardiothoracic surgeon. He's on the program today. In fact, we've been trying to get him on the program for the last year. He's here to talk about his new book, The Diet Evolution. Dr. Gundry, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Randy.
A lot has happened. You know, I had you on the show about probably in 2001.
Be about right.
And you were big and heavy.
Yep.
And you were a little bit down on supplements at the time, and a lot has changed. I read your book, by the way, and I try not to endorse a lot of people on the show. Best book I've seen on diet ever.
Thanks.
I mean, this is a must-read. This is very good.
Well, I appreciate that.
So let's talk about your background first. What qualifies you? I mean, you're a heart surgeon. You were doing transplants. You've invented things that are being used nationwide. Well, I guess you should tell the story.
Well, how did it all come to this? I went to Yale University as an undergraduate, and back in the dark ages, I had a special major where I could do anything I wanted for 4 years with 3 professors. Okay. So I chose to study human evolutionary biology. Okay. And that's just a fancy way of saying I investigated how our genes of our ancestors interacted with their environment as we evolved, interacted with foods we ate, with where we lived. And I had this big thesis, and that was about the end of it. And then I went to medical school, and I actually decided to become a heart surgeon, and became a children's heart surgeon as well. And about 1989, I was recruited to come to Loma Linda University and became the chairman of heart surgery there. Okay. And my partner, Leonard Bailey, and I did all the baby heart transplants that people remember.
Well, you've done surgeries, I guess, in Israel, I think you said.
We've been all over the world.
But I mean, didn't you do robotic surgery?
We did robotic surgery.
Bypass surgery,
where we would control a robot here, and then the robot would be elsewhere. Okay. We've done that we were actually sitting at a convention in San Francisco controlling something over in France. So.
Okay, you changed also the way they thought about
how we protect the heart.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was at the National Institutes of Health, I got interested in how we keep a heart alive during heart surgery. And traditionally, when we work on the heart during heart surgery, we cut off the flow of blood to it so it stops moving. But you try to keep it alive by putting ingredients down the blood vessels of the heart. Well, half of heart surgery, the blood vessels are blocked, and that's why we're there, to unblock them. Okay. So that preservative solution doesn't get to where it needs to go. So one day I was studying a paper by a physiologist from 1898 where he pumped blood backwards into the veins of a cat heart. So the cat heart, as long as he kept putting oxygenated blood into the vein of the cat heart, would keep beating outside the cat just fine, with blood going backwards through the veins. Because after all, the veins have no valves in them inside the heart, and they eventually get to the capillaries, the same way the arteries do, only the opposite direction. Okay. So I started experimenting with giving these preservative solutions into the veins of the heart. There's a central vein called the coronary sinus, and I invented a little catheter, a tube, that could deliver these things, and sure enough, just like you'd expect, it worked perfectly. And initially, when we started doing it in humans, people thought we were absolutely crazy. In fact, Denton Cooley, one of the most prominent heart surgeons around from the Texas Heart Institute, described it as giving the heart an enema. Okay. And but everyone who tried it found out that their hearts worked far better than the traditional way. And now it's really the gold standard for protecting the heart.
Now, Denton Cooley, isn't he the same guy that said that your pig heart wouldn't last more than a few days?
That's true.
What'd you do with that experiment?
I'm very interested in xenotransplantation, and that's a fancy way of saying take a heart from one species and put it into some other species. For instance, a baboon heart transplant to a human, baby Faye, was one species to another. Okay. But obviously, you don't want to go around sacrificing baboons or monkeys to keep humans alive. On the other hand, we eat pigs, and pigs are very anatomically similar to humans, both in their habits and their hearts. So the problem is a pig is so hugely different genetically from a human that the minute you put a pig heart into a human or an ape, its blood supply just thromboses, clots within a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So what we did was we did some manipulations with the pig to give it supplements, if you will, to have it not react to human blood. So the amazing thing is that it was actually my first introduction to the power of supplements in being able to change the genes of one animal to accept the blood of another animal.
Okay.
But those hearts survived 28 days when it was predicted that they could only go for maybe an hour.
Okay.
And that was really in the back of my mind when I met Big Ed, who really changed
tell me
my
about
life.
that. So you moved to the desert, and you met a patient, you say, that started your new career.
Yeah, actually, he was referred to me while I was still at Loma Linda. I'm famous for operating on people that nobody else wants to operate on.
Okay.
And Big Ed was a 48-year-old guy, still alive, and he was sent to me as a guy to operate on. He had inoperable coronary artery disease. That basically means that every blood vessel was so clogged up that you couldn't put stents through, you couldn't do bypasses around, and he'd been going around to doctors saying, you know, how about it, will you take me? Well, every doctor looked at his angiogram, the movie of his heart, and said, you know, there's nothing I can do for you.
All right.
So I saw Big Ed about 6 months after his angiogram, and at that time Big Ed had lost 45 pounds. And he had gone to a health food store and he'd gotten this huge bag of supplements, and he brought it in with him. Yeah. And he says, you know, Doc, everybody says I'm inoperable, but, you know, I've lost 45 pounds and I've been taking all these supplements. Maybe I've done something in here. Well, you know, I scratched my professor beard, and at that time I was pretty obese, so I'm patting my tongue. Big boy. And I said, well, good for you for losing weight, but it's not going to change anything in here. And I know exactly what you did with all those supplements. You made expensive urine, and you've wasted all your money.
You said that?
And I said that, and I believed it.
Okay.
He says, well, what do we got to lose? Why don't we get another angiogram and see what my blood vessels look like? I said, okay. So the next day, this guy gets his angiogram. 50% of the blockages were gone. Gone.
Is that unheard of, by the way, to do with natural means?
I'd never seen it. You know, you hear these stories of how I cured heart disease, blah, 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 but a lot of times they come from kind of funny sources.
So you had never seen it?
I'd never seen it.
So when you saw that, what now? What goes on in your mind?
I had to believe it because, you know, there it was, because I had an angiogram from 6 months previous.
Okay.
And the only thing that he had done is lose weight and take a huge number of supplements. So I actually started kind of looking through his bag of supplements. I said, give me those supplements.
Right.
And some of the supplements he was using were similar to the compounds I was using down in the lab to do my experiments in keeping hearts alive for 24 hours for heart transplant.
Interesting.
And I said, you know, I'm so stupid. Here I've kind of trusted in modern medicine with these chemicals that we're using, but where did the chemicals come from? Well, they all started with a plant compound that was changed a little bit.
So you saw this guy, comes in, remove some of the plaque from his arteries. Yep. Okay. Then what? So you go on this quest.
Yeah, I go on this quest, and what I did was I started myself. I went to the health food store. I did a lot of research on the internet and said, son of a gun, you know, this guy was just kind of haphazardly doing it. What if I, you know, did this and this and this? And then my mother sent me my thesis from college on human evolutionary biology. And it was about 165 pages describing the ancestral diet that we ate in the Pleistocene era. Now, this is not a Paleolithic diet, but actually a Pleistocene diet. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Paleolithic diet is typical caveman diet, you know, high animal protein, wild foods. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, the first part of the book...
That's like your induction part.
Exactly. The first part of the book is very similar to a Paleolithic diet. But in fact, that diet is only about 150,000 years old.
That's meat and low glycemic vegetables.
Exactly.
That's the paleo kind of.
That's the paleo diet.
But you say that's good for weight loss initially.
It's great for weight loss
initially. But you're at the next level with your...
But the problem is it gets us into trouble long term if long-term wellness is actually what our goal is. And I'm actually convinced that most people, if they were given a choice, want to die young at a very old age.
What does that mean?
That means as long as you are fit, as long as your brain works, as long as you can do what you want to do, as long as you feel well, you want to keep on living and enjoying that, even if you're very old.
Okay.
Okay. What happens to most people is baby boomers, like ourselves, have far more ailments now than our parents did at our age. Far more. We take far more medications. I mean, let me give you an example.
Okay.
Last week, John McCain, 71 years old,
Yeah.
gets his medical records released. What happens is that all the talking doctors come on the TV and say, well, he's a very healthy 71-year-old. He takes 8 medications, which is standard for someone his age. He's being treated for high blood pressure. He's being treated for high cholesterol. He's being treated for kidney failure. He's being treated for prediabetes. He's being treated for arthritis. And he takes medicines for all that.
But he's considered healthy.
He's considered healthy. And I'm going,
What do you say to that?
wait a minute.
Okay.
How in the world, was he born with, you know, a hypertensive medicine deficiency? Was he born with a kidney medicine deficiency? Was he born with a pancreas deficiency?
But his medications certainly help him.
Absolutely. But the problem is, come into my hospital, I'll show you 400 people who are in there because their management of their diseases, which has been very good, hasn't kept them out of the hospital.
Okay.
And I'm actually now convinced that for most of us, the reason we're in the hospital is because our genes are trying to get rid of us.
Okay, and you outline in your book how to turn that around.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. Now, with a John McCain, are you convinced you could get him off those medications?
Absolutely.
His blood pressure goes down?
Yeah, I wouldn't have believed this 7 years ago. I would have thought, yep, he's a healthy guy, you know, he's getting old, he's going to have all these things. That's normal.
It's not
not normal. You go to countries that haven't eaten the way we eat, or you find patients, and I have them, who have eaten a great way all of their lives, and they don't have those problems. The lady who opens my book was a real revelation. Early when I got out to the desert, I think I was on your show.
Yeah.
And she came in, and you know, there's a chart in the front of the wall, and I look in the door, and there's this very striking, thin, handsome woman, very erect, and I figure she's about 65, and I pull open the chart, and her age says 95. I'm going, yeah, sorry, I have the wrong room. Well, she was 95, and I can use her name because she allows me to. Her name's Edith Murray. And Edith, when she was 20 years old, went to a revival by a guy by the name of Gaylord Hauser. And if you've ever used Spike seasoning or Vegisol seasoning, that was Gaylord Hauser's miracle ingredients. Gaylord Hauser gave a seminar and basically said, go home and throw every white food out of your pantry and never eat a white food again.
Okay.
This young lady, 20 years old, did exactly that. She went home and threw every white thing out.
Yeah, but who can live like that, realistically?
The point,
because cravings keep all of us from doing that. That's my only argument here.
Great question about cravings.
Let's take a break and come back about cravings. Because you say you can wipe out cravings.
Yep.
Okay, with very little food.
With very little food.
All right. You're watching The Wellness Hour, leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today's topic, we're here with Dr. Gundry, world-famous thoracic surgeon, and we're talking about his brand new book, the Dr. Gundry's Diet Evolution. Excellent book. I've read the first half. We'll be right back.
There's a new secret to looking younger, an advancement so profound, it took a team of scientists years to create. A time machine called Zoom. Getting zoomed is the fastest way to erase years from your looks. Zoom is the most advanced teeth whitening ever. Only your dentist has it. Nothing works like it. Zoom Gel gently penetrates the submicron pores of tooth enamel. The patented Zoom Light superactivates the gel through a unique photofenton reaction, breaking down the stain's double bonds. In just 45 minutes, years of discoloration disappear, transforming your smile to wow. To find a Zoom dentist near you, go to zoomnow.com or call 800-891-4895. For your whitest, most confident, most irresistible smile, get zoomed today. Make your appointment at zoomnow.com or call 800-891-4895 today and discover the wow of Zoom.
Tried all sorts of cover-ups for bad breath? Try the science of Breathorex. Only Breathorex has Zytex. It attacks the cause of bad breath, keeps working for hours. It's clinically proven for real fresh breath.
Get non-prescription Breathorex from your dental hygienist and now at fine stores everywhere.
You are watching The Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. We're here with Dr. Gundry, world-famous cardiothoracic surgeon, and we're talking about his new book, hot book, Dr. Gundry's Diet Evolution. Okay, and you called it evolution because I thought it was revolution, and then I took a second look. Why evolution?
Well, it is a revolution, but it's actually, the principle of the book is to evolve our eating style. The problem with many very, very good diets that I really think are a good way to eat, they're almost impossible for the average person who's been eating a typical American Western diet to immediately transition into.
Okay.
It's just too hard a step.
And this is what, we let off the break. You said you met the woman, get rid of everything white, get off bread, eat lean vegetables or low glycemic vegetables and lean proteins. But who can do that? We know what we have to do. I mean, everybody really watching this that has a weight problem has tried all of these things.
Yep.
They can't follow. Cravings are out of control. You say they could be wiped out. So tell me a little about cravings, your take.
Well, let me tell you, I see a lot of patients who have gastric bypass surgery. I used to do gastric bypass surgery. We now know that gastric bypass surgery works. It's not because the stomach is stapled into this little tiny ball that you can't get food through.
Okay.
It turns out that we bypass part of the intestines so that food literally speeds up through the intestines. There are little receptors, little monitors at the bottom part of your bowel that actually monitor how fast nutrients are flowing by. Now, why the heck is it there? Well, it turns out that all animals in the wild don't get obese. They actually have triggers that stop them eating.
Or else they die.
Or else, yeah, they eat all the food. These triggers are, among other things, these little receptors. And as the food goes by, these receptors say, oh, plenty of food going by. They release some hormones that go up to the brain that says, you're not hungry. So the brain says, oh, okay, we got plenty of food, I don't need to eat.
All right.
The gastric bypass patients, with that bypass in there, the food is actually flowing past these receptors much faster than normal.
Interesting.
So the receptors say, plenty of stuff going by here, you're not hungry.
They say they're full.
And one of the amazing things about gastric bypass patients, within a couple days, this insatiable hunger that they've had all their lives goes away.
Because the lap band people, I've talked to them, say that they're still hungry, but they just eat less.
The lap band people who just have their stomach, stapled, if you will, are hungrier than ever, but they just can't eat. They can't get past that blockage. They've just got this little thing. And they're the ones who don't lose weight the way gastric bypass patients do, and they're the ones who rupture their stomach or rupture their esophagus trying to get food in there. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that if we have large numbers of micronutrients, now most of us know about nutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Those are the three main nutrients. We're now realizing that it's the micronutrients, these weird little tiny chemicals, and they're called phytochemicals. Phyto means plant, that are in plants in general. They also used to be in the animals we ate, because animals up until 50 years ago ate grass. The cows ate grass, the chickens ate grass and bugs, the fish ate algae. Now almost all of our animals eat grain products that don't have these micronutrients. So, make a long story short, if you consume a lot of leaves, if you will, or...
Well, how do you do that? Who can do that? Is that what you're doing?
Actually, I eat large amounts of salad. People just... I'll have mixing bowls full of it.
But to accomplish this fast pass...
Fast pass, what you do is you get yourself some green powders, or green or red powders. You can go to any health food store. You can go to my website and see what I recommend. I'm going to order that stuff. We talked about it. It's in the book. And
you say my cravings will go away.
Your cravings will go away. My patients are shocked, and I was shocked, because I was always ravenously hungry.
Is that enough food? Who could live off that powder?
That isn't enough food, but then you can manage what you eat, because most of us say, oh, I just can't deal with the cravings when I'm on a diet. I can be really good for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, but that's all based on control. The problem is once that control is removed and you say, okay, you know, I kind of go back the way I want to eat, these cravings just drive you crazy. The cravings actually come from a hormone that your brain produces called ghrelin. And ghrelin is the ultimate hunger hormone. Ghrelin says if you're losing weight, there's a problem. You're obviously not getting enough food. Okay. And when we look at people who are dieting without these supplements, their ghrelin levels are sky high.
All right.
The amazing thing, a study with college students, they put them in a sleep lab where they controlled how long they slept. And they let them sleep for 8 hours, and they measured ghrelin levels, which is the hunger hormone, and the ghrelin levels were extremely low. They then brought them back a couple weeks later, and they let them sleep for 6 hours. When they woke them up, they measured ghrelin levels, and the ghrelin levels were very high, as if they were really hungry. Okay. It turns out that the amount of sleep and actually the amount of darkness that we're exposed to controls ghrelin. So the next time they brought them back, and this is the most fun, they told them that they were only going to let them sleep for 6 hours, but they let them sleep for 8 hours.
All right.
When they woke them up at 8 hours, their ghrelin levels were extremely high. Their brain had already been preconditioned that they were only going to get 6 hours of sleep and was prepared to be hungry.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, you see in the news all the time about how Americans and the world over are getting less and less sleep. Yes. We're sleeping about an hour and a half less than in 1960. Okay. And one of the things that drives most people is their lack of sleep. Because if an animal is not sleeping, the only time an animal is not sleeping is when there's a predator outside the door or marching around a tree. You know, the old advisory of 8 hours of sleep is an extremely good idea. Here's the other thing. In the winter, when day length is short and nights are long, okay, we would have been sleeping when the sun went down until the sun came up, a very long time. All right. Because there's not much food in the winter, our appetites are suppressed because of that, because it'd be stupid to go out looking for food. All right. In the summer, when there's lots of daylight, that's when all the food's available. That's when the food's available. So in the
summer you have a bigger appetite.
It's when ghrelin levels are at their highest. Because believe it or not, our genes are so well designed that they say, hey, sun's out, the food's here, you'd be an idiot not to pack it away.
And that's when we all want to be in the best shape, is in the summer.
Yeah.
And it's true, the cravings go up. Interesting.
Yep.
And there's science behind everything you're saying.
Absolutely. It's fascinating.
Let's talk a little bit about what you eat, because we're just about out of time, but I want to talk a little bit about you eat. You cycle things, like today. What's your typical, give me a typical
Well, a typical day is I'll take a green and red drink in the morning. I'll take a scoop of ground up flax seeds, a scoop of green powder, a scoop of red powder, and I'll change my powders every couple of months just because I want a slightly different mix of these micronutrients. Okay. Every company's got a little bit different mix.
Interesting.
And then I'll take a very large handful of supplements.
This is outlined in your book?
I'm the ultimate original anti-supplement guy, and now I am so impressed with the power of these things.
So this helps your appetite because it's passing through the intestine very quickly.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Tells your brain I'm not hungry.
Tells your brain you're not hungry.
How long does this take to happen?
It happens almost instantaneously. My patients come in after 2 weeks and they say, this is really weird. I'm not hungry. Okay. I even forget to eat meals. Is that okay? And
what about the protein? I don't hear any protein.
Great question. We get so much protein in our American diet. Way, way, way too much. There's some incredibly good studies done by Colin Campbell out of Harvard looking at the amount of animal protein that people in Chinese villages eat and their longevity and their wellness. Okay. The amazing thing is, as the animal protein levels go up, their longevity and wellness goes down on a one-to-one basis.
Interesting.
Now that doesn't mean you have to be a vegetarian or a vegan.
Because you eat meat.
I do eat meat, but
raw.
But I eat it mostly raw. Now, don't go running out and eat a raw chicken breast.
Okay.
But for instance, if you're going to a restaurant, have some beef carpaccio, you know, thinly sliced beef that's raw, steak tartare. But it turns out that there's so much protein in vegetables. For instance,
I mean, is that really enough, though?
it's a huge amount. There's more usable protein in 100 calories of broccoli than there is in 100 calories of filet.
Okay.
More protein. I mean, you look at a horse. You see him out eating burgers to get all that muscle
But they have a different system than we do, though. I mean, that's
Take
not
a
fair
gorilla.
comparison.
A gorilla
Okay.
actually has our identical system. A gorilla eats 16 pounds of leaves every day. Now,
But they're vegetarians, aren't they?
Well, they're actually not vegetarians.
Interesting.
Turns out that most herbivores, which is the correct term, those that eat herbs or vegetables, are actually omnivores because they're eating bugs that are attached to the grasses and the leaves and the fruit they eat.
I mean, most of us, I mean, every pop diet book is about protein. We'll lose our muscle, our heart will get weak,
Yep.
our skin will fall apart.
Well, that's an important point. And in phase one, when we're really trying to lose fat and not muscle mass, our brain, particularly when we're on a low-carb diet, our brain is constantly looking for sugar because it actually wants sugar. It loves sugar. That's why people who go on an Atkins diet or even a South Beach, they feel awful for a few days. And that's because of ketosis, and everybody knows about the words ketosis. Your brain will burn fat for fuel, but it doesn't like it. It's never happy doing that.
Okay.
It wants sugar. So unfortunately, the brain calls down to your muscles and says, hey guys, I need some sugar. We can actually make sugar from protein in our muscles. You can't turn sugar into protein, but you can take protein and turn it into sugar. It's called gluconeogenesis. What happens is your brain is constantly calling down to your muscles looking for sugar. Well, you can bypass that by consuming small amounts of protein, like a concentrated protein powder, several times a day during the early phases of weight loss. What that does is it will break down into sugar very, very
So
slowly.
the early phase does include protein.
Yeah.
You have the tear down phase,
Yep.
the restoration phase, and the longevity phase. That's where you are. All right, so we're going to have you back. I want to thank you so much. Excellent book. Where did you pick this up, by the way? I got it at a local bookstore.
Yeah, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, Borders, most local bookstores have them, Amazon.com. In the desert area, Costco's carrying it. Probably is going to go national in Costco shortly.
Is that right? Well, congratulations. Good for you. Good for you. You've been watching The Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news and information. I'm Randy Alvarez. If you would like to see the second part to this interview, visit our website at wellnesshour.com. For now, I wish you good health.
Thanks for watching The Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news with your host, Randy Alvarez, the authority on health issues.